ئەمە دەبوانی بەڕێز زۆر خۆشحاڵم کە لە زانكۆی ئەمریکی لە کوردستان ئامادەم ئەمڕۆ و بەشدارم لەم پانەڵە خۆشحاڵم کە ئەمە یەکەم سەردانمە بۆ ئەم زانكۆیە جوان و کاریگەرە دەستخۆشیتان لێ ئەەکەم داوام لێ کراوە بە ئینگلیزی قسە بکەم بۆیە ئەگەر ئیجازەم بن خۆشبەختانە کەمێک ئینگلیزیم لەبیر ماوە بۆیە هیوادارم ئێمە بتوانین گفتوگۆیەکی باش و دەوڵەمەند و تەندروستمان هەبێ. Thank you, Ranj, for the introduction, and thank you all at AUK for hosting us and arranging this important event at this very important time. I think there is a direct correlation between governance, good governance, and stability and obviously prosperity. I remember when the Iraqi government, this Iraqi government, was first formed, and the first time I had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Adil Abdul Mahdi as Prime Minister of Iraq. In our first meeting, he asked me, what is going to be my biggest challenge? And I said to him, governance. Governance is always the biggest challenge, and the first challenge that any government faces when they take office or when they're carrying out their work. Because if you do not govern well, then you are not serving your population well. And when you do not serve your population well, you have an unhappy population. And when you have an unhappy population, then you obviously have an unhappy country or an unhappy society. So I think that it has been too often the case over the last 16 years in Iraq, where successive Iraqi governments have blamed, or not blamed, but have covered over the shortcomings of governance and pointed to a larger, more strategic, geopolitical problem, right? Whether it's regional conflicts or Iran-US tensions or war with ISIS or a whole host of reasons, or some would say excuses, for not tackling the real issues in the country. And now we're at a point where the public in Iraq, for example, are not taking these excuses anymore. And they are airing their grievances and they're asking for the basics. Because most citizens, they may be interested in the geopolitical issues. They may be concerned about regional tensions. But ultimately, most citizens of every society care about their immediate surroundings. They care about the basic services. They care about water, electricity, healthcare, education. They care about the hope for prosperity and economic development. They care about improving their lives, their families' lives, and the lives of those closest and dearest to them. And that's been missing in a lot of these debates when we talk about regional security and regional issues, regional political issues. In Kurdistan, when we faced our series of crises in 2014, when we had the fiscal shock of the budget cuts from Baghdad, when we had the physical shock of the war with ISIS, when we had the humanitarian shock of the wave of refugees and IDPs, which dehōk, where we are today, suffered the most because of that influx. And we had the added shocks of the drop in oil prices, which completely expanded our fiscal deficit. And you add to that the political shocks that we sometimes bring upon ourselves as Kurds. We were facing an untenable and unimaginable situation. So we had to reach for reform. We had to realize that take a look inside and see what is it we must do in this point. Yes, our brave soldiers and security forces were fighting on the front lines. We didn't have the money to build projects and do what ministers like to do, which is to cut ribbons and lay foundation stones for projects. We didn't have that luxury anymore at our disposal. So we had to do some soul searching and realize that what is within our control as a government is to do things better. which is why we started the reforms. We looked at implementing a painful austerity program. We looked at how to cut other expenses. We looked at how to increase revenues. We looked at how to make our expenditure process more robust. We found ways to eliminate illegal employees or people that were illegally receiving more than one salary. We eliminated ghost employees. We started attacking these big issues, which were painful. And I think this is another element. Reform is not easy, right? Reform is sometimes painful. And too often when countries try to reform, and we're seeing this in Baghdad right now, to address people's grievances, they're trying to throw money at problems. Hire more people, give people more allowances, give people more homes, build people more homes. This may be a short-term fix, but this is not going to create political, economic, and fiscal stability in the country. Restructuring governance will, streamlining government services will, making transparent government services will, improving the quality of healthcare services, education services, and other essential services. This will make an impact, and some of this involves redirecting funds away from just throwing money at problems, but partnering with the private sector, looking at opening up your economy to others, because ultimately you look at countries that have unhappy populations, right? You see them, you see their governance models not being good, and look at countries that are causing problems around the world. They're never countries with happy populations. Countries that are causing problems around the world are usually the countries with unhappy populations. So this is a lesson to all of us at a regional, national, or broader regional context. Fix your home, fix governance at home, worry about securing your home, worry about providing services to your people, worry about creating the most jobs you can for your people, not just in the public sector, but in the private sector. And you will likely have a much more conducive, healthy environment with a more healthy population, a more psychologically healthy population, which will then elect, I think, a more psychologically healthy government, which then won't go on foreign escapades and cause problems beyond their borders. So I reiterate, there is a direct correlation between good governance and stability at a local or regional or international level.
Point might be for regional peace and security. And we did hear from the Minister that it is a colossal challenge, that there are all sorts of factors at play. It's a multifaceted challenge. Taking your remarks on the efforts you led domestically in Kurdistan for reform, what role can outside actors play? Is this something that can really be left to the region's own devices, left to Kurdistan's own devices, or is this something that really has to be a collective effort involving regional plus international actors?
I think there is an important role for the international actors, international organizations, friendly countries to play in reform. We were the first to admit we don't know everything. We still have a very big shortage of real economists in Kurdistan, for example, real skilled. We have great talent across our government, but we needed expertise. So we came to the EU and said, look, we need expertise in this area. We went to the US, and the US gave us some advisors that they paid for. The UK, the same. France, we're in touch with. The Netherlands are helping us now with agriculture reform. So yeah, absolutely, we can learn from experiences. Developed countries, strong countries, friendly countries all have international development agencies which are filled with qualified people that have worked across the world in countries that are facing situations very similar to ours. So there's nothing wrong about not knowing something. It's wrong to not know something but then claim to know everything, which is too prevalent in the Middle East. It's almost shameful to not know something. Well, no, it's not shameful. In my opinion, it's shameful to not know something but then claim to know it. So I think that the foreign powers, the friendly powers, can't fix problems. There has to be the political will to fix the problem, but they can certainly help with expertise. Just think of how much money has been spent on the so-called reconstruction of Iraq from 2003 until today. I mean, the number is staggering. It's in, Ken, help me, how many billions, if not tens and tens of billions of dollars have been spent on reconstructing Iraq. Where is it? If a tenth of that money had been spent on expertise that could be implanted into the ministries across the levels, from the deputy minister down to the most junior official in the government, you would by now, after 15 years, have a cadre of people in the government that would be skilled. Right? We hear all of this talk today. Well, okay, the demonstrators are unhappy with this government, so they want to get rid of Dr. Adel, they want to get rid of all the ministers. Okay, let's play this out. Dr. Adel gets annoyed, tomorrow he resigns, the 3 presidencies all resign, all the ministers resign. Who's going to form the next government? Those people demonstrating on the streets are not going to form the next government. The same parties that formed this government are going to sit in the same room they sat in to form the last government, and are going to form another government from the same people, from the same political parties, who are then just going to appoint ministers again, and it's not going to work. This man was an excellent minister. You make him a minister in one of the Iraqi ministries, he's not going to be able to fix that ministry. Because the problem is not at the minister level. The problem is much more deeper rooted in the system, especially when you have such a polarized political environment. I mean, in Kurdistan, we have inefficiency, we have bureaucracy, we have corruption, we have incompetence, we have all of that. But at the end of the day, if there is a director general that is causing me a problem within the system, I'm going to look at this Director General and he or she is either going to be PUK or KDP. Okay, so if he's PUK, I'm going to likely call that DG and say, hey, you're giving me a problem, stop doing this or I'm going to remove you. If he's KDP, I'll call His Excellency the Prime Minister and say, Kak Masroor, this guy is giving us a headache. Please do something about it. It's manageable, right? But who's Adel going to call? Dr. Adel, the ministry has a DG from Sadr, from Badr, from Hikmah, from Maliki, from Abadi, from some Sunnis, from some other countries, maybe a couple of Kurds. Who is he going to call to fix that DG in that ministry that is probably doing things I was going to say she, but it's much more likely to be he, it shouldn't be doing. And that, I think this is, in my office, on my whiteboard, I have a sign, and I've written it, and I look at it every day, and I say, don't fix the unfixable. Right? There are some things that are just unfixable. But that doesn't mean you should avoid challenges, right? We looked at our Ministry of Finance. Our Ministry of Finance is in Kurdistan, it's a big, monstrous institution. Lots of employees, some great talent in that ministry, but also some dead wood in that ministry. And to think that I can turn around this ministry and turn it into a functioning, dynamic, young, energetic ministry in a year or two is unrealistic. But I can find the 10, 20, 30, 40 competent people in that ministry, empower them from the minister down to the bottom to create a delivery chain of excellence in that ministry, and then I can make that ministry function. And that, I think, this is nobody's tried to tackle this in Iraq, right? All of this money, I know the EU has spent millions on reform. I know the US has spent millions on reform. I know there's been even some advisors on decentralization, on transparency, on all of this. But all of this is tied in the ministry's office, and the minister looks at these people as their personal staff. And that there is this huge bureaucracy that goes from the ministry level to the provincial level, from the district level to the sub-district level, who is training and building capacity down that delivery chain. So that's where I would start. I would, you know, obviously there's problems in Baghdad. If we're looking at Iraq, you can't kill demonstrators first and foremost. That's unacceptable, right? The people should be allowed to demonstrate. People should be allowed to air their grievances. And the government should have a channel of communicating back and forth with those people. But at the same time, parallel to this, there should be a real look at how to restructure the government to make it work. And that, again, will create, I think, a more functioning government. That's where I would start. I would always start at home. There's no point fixing neighbors and neighborhood problems if you can't fix your own house and your own problems. I don't see constitutional reform or an amendment to the constitution as a solution to the problems of Iraq. I actually think that the fact that the constitution of Iraq has not been implemented is a problem that has created many of the problems that we see in Iraq. This is again, it's another red herring. We can't get electricity working, we can't get water running, we can't get healthcare services fixed, so why don't we amend the constitution? What article of the constitution today prohibits or limits electricity reform? What article of the constitution prohibits or limits healthcare reform? Nothing of it. It's another red herring that the political system has created to create a distraction so as to not address the real issues. Let's embroil the country in a 3-year debate about the constitution when we've had the last 10, 12 years of not implementing the last one. It is, you know, I find this debate on the constitution purely a distraction to what the real issues are. Yeah, I'm sure you can look at the electoral system, the electoral model. I'm hearing district representation. In fact, I mean, is a key article of the existing constitution that has not been implemented, which is the second chamber. There is supposed to be a bicameral legislative system in Iraq, but there is only one right now. The so-called, let's say, Senate of the Iraqi system has not been put into place. So there is a key institution that should be representing the people in a way maybe that the Council of Representatives is not functioning. So let's address that if you want to talk about the constitution. So I felt that I did try to address, you know, what should be done, which is fix the governance structure, go into the ministries, go into, you know, I probably won't want to take up the time again by reiterating my vision for, you know, fixing the problems, which is actually addressing the real root cause of the people's unhappiness, which comes down to basic services, lack of jobs, and also lack of security in the country.
Thanks very much. We have another question. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Dennis, for those who have forgotten me over the last few weeks. Formerly the EU representative in Kurdistan, currently here in personal capacity. First of all, I completely agree with nearly everything you said, and I think your analysis was spot on. To your point on EU foreign policy, I think that is fair enough as well. I'll talk about this more tomorrow in my own panel, but I think it is true that the Europeans were hesitant to even think about such a thing as power or projecting power. We were hoping that soft power, including the governance issues, would balance this, which I think didn't work out. And if you see the new program of the incoming Commission, you will for the first time actually see repeatedly the term power, which gives me a degree of hope. We have to see how it plays out. Question to you, Kubat. I think you very correctly talked about the governance issues. And you asked about sort of how can capacity building and Europeans and globals come in. I think in the long run, development capacity building, particularly Europeans have a lot of experience, and we have helped you with you under your guidance. You have more experience than anyone else. But how can we find anything that would work as economic stabilization measures, just as we did post-war humanitarian stabilization measures? How can we come in and do sort of this interim, short to mid-term governance stabilization measures? What ideas do you have in that regard?
For Kurdistan or for Iraq, or for both?
Both.
You know, for Kurdistan, I look at, you know, we as the government are supposed to execute policies. Policies that are usually set by political parties. Political parties that should have political ideologies. You're conservative, or you're liberal, you're socialist, or you're communist, or you're something in between. This doesn't exist in Iraq as a whole. There really isn't, except for the communists, in fairness to the communists of Iraq and to Kurdistan, they're the only parties that really has a visible political ideology, that has a visible economic ideology. The rest do not have it. And we're transitioning, in Kurdistan, we're transitioning from a revolution, from the mountain revolutions where, as His Excellency Bernard first met our leadership and met our people, to a system of civilian governance. We haven't fully made that transition yet. Look at many of the political parties. We still have in the ranks of the leadership some brave warriors who fought in the mountains, who were revolutionaries. And this is, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm saying this in the case of a transition from a revolution to civilian governance. Now, there are many countries, many European countries, that have made this ideological transition, whether it's east of the wall, they've transitioned from a degree of communism to some sort of democracy today, or some heavy socialism to something. There are countries that have had examples that we can learn from, because ultimately what we lack here is a political ideology. We have this national ideology, we have this ethnic ideology, and we're Kurds and we're Kurdistanis, and this is the forefront of everything we do and say. But we lack, you know, the politics, real politics based on a political ideology. So I think that definitely there could be help in this transition. It's a transition of the mindset. A transition of the mindset where, you know, even our Islamists here are socialists. You know, Islamic parties in Kurdistan have politburos. You know, so helping and you know, down the bureaucracy, understanding that the private sector is not the enemy. Private sector can fill a gap that I, as the government, cannot. So how do I change the mindset of my executives, my bureaucrats, my political parties, to look at the private sector as a potential source of assistance to plugging the gaps that we have here? So again, learning from your models, learning from your experiences, countries that maybe 20, 30 years ago went through various transitions, similar to the transitions that, you know, we're still going through now. And I think so. There is, you know, that there's a lot that can be done. I think with Iraq, it's a bit more, again, as usual, it's more complicated, because the regional interference in Iraq is stronger than your interference in Iraq, and will always be stronger than your interference in Iraq. So whatever you try to do in Iraq, it'll probably be influenced by the regional interference.
And that's something you think should be countered, balanced, outmatched?
I think that, you know, if I were in Baghdad, I would seek all the help that I could get from whoever that was willing to help me, but it would have to be my vision, right? They should help me implement my vision, the vision I have for the country. And I think that's what's missing in Iraq right now, is the Iraqi vision. What does Iraq want to do? And then when Iraq knows what it wants to do, it can find the right partners to help it execute its vision. I think too much, whether in 2003 it was one vision or whether it was 2019, it's another vision. Too much of what is being discussed are other people's visions and not Iraq's own.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Qubad. Minister, before I come to you, let's take one final question and then we can incorporate all the questions together. Please, sir.
My name is Karol Krosnow. I am president of American Kurdish Research Institute. My question to both of you. My name is Karol Krosnow. I am president of American Kurdish Research Institute. My question to both of you. Do you think that a deal of the century will solve the problem of the Middle East? As you know, deal of the century is a proposal suggested by Gary Kushner, and it's just, I think it's just to solve the problem between Palestine and Israel, without mentioning the Kurdish problem. Without mentioning the Kurdish problem and without solving the Kurdish problem, do you think that the deal of the century will make Middle East peace and secure? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Minister.
No, Mr. Minister, Your Excellency.
Up to the
You
minister.
have engaged in such deals.
No, I will comment.
Deals of the decade, deals of the century. Come on, Mr. Minister, please.
No, please. This is your country. I will comment.
I don't think the deal of the century is going to fix all of the problems in the Middle East. I think every country has its own problem. Some problems of some countries are connected to other countries' problems. But I sound like a broken record here. Fix your home, fix the problem in your home, and you make, I saw this a lot with the US-led reconstruction post-Iraq nation-building process. They tried to fix the problems. Right? Fallujah was a huge problem. And for years, the US-led coalition, the Europeans, everybody tried to fix Fallujah. Fix it militarily, fix it politically, fix it economically, fix a problem, right? Most, developed countries like to fix problems, and the way they fix problems is a logical way. There's a checklist, right? How many hospitals can we build? How many schools can we build? Can we, and I kept telling them, I remember at the time, this is not going to be fixed this way, because there's credibility issues, there's political issues, there's interference issues. Make places that are working work better, right? You've got many parts of this region that are trying to do better. Make them work first. Show some successes in areas that are happy to receive help, right? Jordan is always willing to receive help. Then they get help, but they're always willing. Make Jordan better. Help them be better, right? Provide better governance for them to make it better. Help Kurdistan be better. Make our reforms better. You start building islands of success around this region, you begin to isolate problems. Too often, people have tried to fix problems by hitting the problem head on. And logic in the Middle East do not go together. Logic can be applied in Austria, right, Clarice? By and large, in Germany, occasionally in France.
Occasionally.
Right? We look at Western countries, Americans, other developed countries, look at things very logically. This is an illogical part of the world.
Breeze.
I'm optimistic about Kurdistan. I'm optimistic about what we will achieve in the next 4 years. We have a very clear agenda. The agenda is centered around reform, around building institutions that can deliver. There is great synergy between the Prime Minister and myself. The team is gelling well. We have prioritized what we need to do. We have a clear vision, and we're going to do whatever we can to deliver on that vision. We are in troubled waters. We're going to get hit from the left. We're going to get hit from the right. We're going to get hit from this country. We're going to get hit from that country. We're going to get abandoned by many countries. We'll probably have more conflict. Yeah, but we will continue to be stubborn as we have been. We'll continue to be resolute in the way that we have been. We will continue to work to overcome our internal differences, which we must. And this is something we occasionally will need guidance, help from our friends around the world. But we will enact real reforms that will improve electricity, that will improve the quality of healthcare, that will improve the quality of education, that will improve the quality of our universities, that will improve the number of jobs in the private sector, that will, I think, lead to a happier population here in Kurdistan. Now, we will do this alone if we have to. We would rather do it with the support of our friends around the world, and we will show Iraq and the region and our friends how it should be done. And I believe that.
Thank you. Thanks very much indeed, Qubad. And thank you to the audience for being so patient, for your remarks. I'd like you to join me in thanking His Excellency Qubad, His Excellency Bernard Kouchner as well. Thanks very much indeed.